Now that we have established the potential mindset behind an anti-Catholic conspiracy, the question is whether there is any real case to be made that such a conspiracy is active. The answer is yes, because both the Church and the conspirators have said so. To understand the full scope of the conspiracy, there is much to be said of the spiritual, cultural, and intellectual war that the Church has been caught up in since her inception. The centuries-long build-up of modernist philosophy which has so softened the minds of men, historical cataclysms like the so-called Enlightenment, or the Protestant Revolution, the French Revolution, and the Cultural Revolution of the 20th century. But to address our focus for the current discussion, we must consider the organisation called Freemasonry. Many of you will have at least heard of Freemasonry. What is presented as a charitable fraternity, but fewer and fewer today might understand that it has long been regarded as a mortal enemy of the Church. Can Freemasonry be regarded as satanic? Of course, they do not describe themselves as satanic, but what are we to make of that? Any liar can call himself honest. Their beliefs cannot be openly confirmed. They are, by nature, an occult society built upon secrecy, who hide their ideas even from their own members. This is the first warning sign. That being said, famous leading Freemasons have made hearty references to Lucifer in their work. Any Freemasonic literature which can be publicly accessed is rife with the kind of occult language which reads like a melange of every form of pagan magical mysticism, as is their extensive symbology. And if they are to be taken, even at surface level, it is presented as a kind of pan-theological organisation that invites in people from all religions, forming them into a kind of chimeric melange, whilst holding members to its own special oaths. But the main reason for why we should be wary of Freemasonic Satanism is because Holy Mother Church has said as much. There are no fewer than 9 papal encyclicals denouncing Freemasonry as an enemy of the Church, and these encyclicals stand in mutual support of each other for the harshest penalties against Freemasonry and cooperation with it. Here are some passages. We see how the Church has connected Freemasons with Satan, or the satanic spirit. Quote, "Some of you may perchance wonder that the war against the Catholic Church extends so widely. Indeed, each of you knows well the nature, zeal, and intention of sects, whether called Masonic or some other name. From these, the synagogue of Satan is formed, which draws up its forces, advances its standards, and joins battle against the Church of Christ. Etsi Alta, Blessed Pope Pius IX, 1873. Pope Leo XIII. The Freemasons, possessed by the spirit of Satan, whose instruments they are, burn like him with a deadly and implacable hatred of Jesus Christ and his work. There are 2 kingdoms. One is the kingdom of God, the other is the kingdom of Satan, in whose possession and control are all whosoever follow the fatal example of their leader. Of Freemasons, their chief dogmas are so greatly and manifestly at variance with reason that nothing can be more perverse. In their insane and wicked endeavour, we may almost see the implacable hatred and spirit of revenge with which Satan himself is inflamed against Jesus Christ. We see how the Freemasons are named in war against the Church. Pope Leo XIII again. Quote, "The enemy forces, inspired by the evil spirit, ever wage war on the Christian name. They join forces in this endeavour with certain groups. The spirit of all previous groups hostile to Catholic institutions has come to life again in that group, called the Masonic sect. The main object of the Masonic sect is, and they make no secret of it, to wage an unrelenting war against Catholicism and the papacy. Freemasons, especially, desire to assail the Church with irreconcilable hostility." Now Pope Pius IX. "The Masons boldly turn to this, to hand over the Church of God to a most harsh servitude, to tear up the supports on which it rests, and to attempt to distort the marks by which it stands out gloriously. What more? They would, if possible, completely wipe it from the world, after they had shaken it with frequent blows, ruined it, and overturned it." We also see how the Church has warned us that this satanic sect uses different names and hides under different guises. From Pope Leo XIII, quote, "There are several organised bodies which, though differing in name, in ceremonial, in form and origin, are nevertheless so bound together by community of purpose and by the similarity in their main opinions, as to make in fact one thing with the sect of the Freemasons, which is a kind of centre whence they all go forth, and whither they all return. At this period, however, the partisans of evil seem to be combining together, and to be struggling with united vehemence, led on or assisted by that strongly organised and widespread association called the Freemasons. And finally, we have papal decrees on penalties against Catholics should they cooperate with Freemasons in any way. From Pope Clement XII. Quote, "We command most strictly and in virtue of holy obedience all the faithful of whatever state, grade, condition, order, dignity or preeminence, whether clerical or lay, secular or regular, even those who are entitled to specific and individual mention, that none, under any pretext or for any reason, shall dare or presume to enter, propagate or support these aforesaid societies of liberi muratori, or francs-maçons, or however else they are called, or to receive them in their houses or dwellings, or to hide them, be enrolled among them, join to them, be present with them, give power or permission for them to meet elsewhere, to help them in any way, to give them in any way advice, encouragement or support, either openly or in secret, directly or indirectly, on their own or through others. Nor are they to urge others to tell them, incite or persuade them to be enrolled in such societies, or to be counted among their number, or to be present or assist them in any way. But they must stay completely clear of such societies, companies, assemblies, meetings, congregations, or conventicles, under pain of excommunication for all the above mentioned people, which is incurred by the very deed without any declaration being required, and from which no one can obtain the benefit of absolution other than at the hour of death, except through ourselves or the Roman pontiff of the time." Not only is this outline of penalties for any form of association with Freemasonry of the harshest degree, but it is emphasised multiple times. Following this decree from Pope Clement, we read this decree, for example, from Pope Benedict XIV. Quote, "Clement XII, our predecessor, with his own apostolic letter of 1738, condemned for always and forbade some societies, commonly called the Freemasons or otherwise." Benedict goes on to defend and expand upon this decree, to uphold it, and concludes by stating, quote, "To no one, therefore, absolutely, is it allowed to violate or with fearless daring contradict this page of our confirmation. If anyone dared so much, know that he would incur the indignation of Almighty God." We get one more confirmation from Pope Leo XIII. The Church has forbade anyone to enter Freemasonry under the penalties which the Church is wont to inflict upon exceptionally guilty persons. And finally, these decrees were crystallized within canon law. Quote, "Persons joining associations of the Masonic sect, or any others of the same kind, which plot against the Church and legitimate civil authorities, contract excommunication, simply reserved to the Apostolic See." Canon 2335 of the 1917 Code. And so, we can clearly see that the Church has been unequivocal in its condemnation against Freemasonry, has called it satanic, named it as her enemy, and incurred the harshest penalties within her power against Freemasonry or anyone even slightly associated with it. Alongside the name Freemason, we must now consider the name Carbonari as a part of Freemasonry. Pope Pius VI made the following statement, quote, "The Church has condemned and prescribed the societies de libri muratori, or francs-maçons, or called by whatever other name according to the variety of regions and idioms, of which societies the Society of the Carbonari must be considered perhaps the offspring, or certainly the imitation." Following his time in 1885, Monsignor Dillon released a series of lectures then compiled into a book titled The War of the Antichrist, which received an imprimatur from Leo XIII and laid out much of the Freemasonic history, practice, and plans. In these lectures we learn that, quote, "Freemasons determined to kindle such a flame of revolution in Italy as in its effect should, before long, do more harm to religion and order than even the French Revolution had caused in its sanguinary but brief career. They effected this by information on the darkest lines of quote, illuminated masonry of the terrible sect of the Carbonari. And we also read in the Catholic Encyclopedia that, quote, the similarity between the secret society of the Carbonari and Freemasonry is evident. Freemasons could enter the Carbonari as masters at once. Although there is public denial or at least doubt thrown on the connection between Freemasonry and the Carbonari, we trust that the Church has seen the connection between the two. After all, they share the same goals, the same organisational structures, and share the same membership. Why is all of this important? Because the Carbonari released a document called the Permanent Instruction of the Alta Vendita, which is nothing more and nothing less than the outline of a long, organised conspiracy against the Catholic Church, and in particular, against the papacy. It is recommended that any of you read this document in full. It can be found within the work of Monsignor Dillon, amongst other places. For now, we will reveal at least a few passages to get a sense of its meaning. Within the Permanent Instruction of the Alta Vendita by the Masonic organization of the Italian Carbonari, we read, quote, our final end is the destruction forever of Catholicism and even of the Christian idea. The Pope, whoever he may be, will never come to the secret societies. It is for the secret societies to come first to the Church, in the resolve to conquer the two. That which we ought to demand, that which we should seek and expect, as the Jews expected the Messiah, is a Pope according to our own wants. We do not doubt that we shall arrive at that supreme term of all of our efforts. But when? But how? We wish in this instruction, which must rest a secret for the simple initiated, to give to those of the Supreme Lodge counsels with which they should enlighten the universality of the brethren, under the form of an instruction or memorandum. It is of special importance, and because of a discretion, the motives of which are transparent, never to permit it to be felt that these counsels are orders emanating from the Alta Vendita. Little can be done with those old cardinals, or those prelates whose character is very decided. If he is in advance a declared enemy, envelop him in all the snares which you can place beneath his feet. Create for him one of those reputations which will frighten little children and old women. Paint him cruel and sanguinary. Recount regarding him some traits of cruelty which can be easily engraved in the minds of people. Crush the enemy, whoever he may be. Crush the powerful by means of lies and calumnies, but especially crush him in the egg. It is to the youth we must go. It is that which we must seduce. In order to secure us a pope in the manner required, it is necessary to fashion for that pope a generation worthy of the reign of which we dream. Obtain for yourselves the reputations of good Catholics and pure patriots. That reputation will open the way for our doctrines to pass to the bosoms of the young clergy, and go even to the depths of the convents. In a few years, the young clergy will have, by the force of events, invaded all the functions. They will govern, administer, and judge. They will form the council of the sovereign. They will be called upon to choose the pontiff who will reign. And that pontiff, like the greater part of his contemporaries, will be necessarily imbued with the Italian and humanitarian principles which we are about to put into circulation. You wish to establish the reign of the elect upon the throne of the prostitute of Babylon? Let the clergy march under your banner, in the belief always that they march under the banner of the apostolic keys. Let us prepare our arms in the silence of the lodges, dress our batteries, flatter all passions, the most evil and the most generous, and all lead us to think that our plans will succeed one day, above even our most improbable calculations. The Permanent Instruction of the Alta Vendita, written by the Italian Masonic Carbonari, circa 19th century, verified as genuine by Pope Pius IX in 1861.